even as people in our society are becoming more aware of the diversity of potential sexual practices, we still live in a world where some sexual behaviors are much more acceptable than others. Many scholars argue that we live in a sexually stratified society, emerging from the notion of social stratification, or the idea that society organizes people into groups and then places groups in a hierarchy, with some groups having much more access to power, privilege, and resources than others. The notion of sexual stratification suggests that our sexual desires, behaviors, and identities can all play a role in which group we're placed into. This week, I have asked for you to reflect on this notion of sexual stratification in the discussion, and we'll continue exploring and reflecting on this issue today as we look at the work of Gayle Rubin. You might remember Rubin from the discussion of queer theory. Rubin argues that we live in a sexually stratified society, where some acts are deemed good, natural, normal, and even blessed, while others are placed on the outer limits of society and deemed evil, unnatural, or bad. In her 1984 text, Thinking Sex, Notes for a Radical Theory of the Politics of Sexuality, Gayle Rubin articulates how sex is used as a political agent and a means of implementing repression and creating dominance in today's Western society. She dissects modern culture's stance on sexuality, exposing the hypocrisy and subjugation that she claims victimizes anyone of a different sexual orientation or sexual inclination. Rubin argues that sexual repression has created an inherent caste system within our culture that has given some sexual behaviors more value than others. At the peak of this erotic pyramid is sex within marriage for the purpose of reproduction. Below is unmarried but monogamous sex, monogamous homosexual sex, and a category which includes sex with trans folks, prostitutes, and porn models. However, the lowest caste, according to Rubin, is those where erotic desires transgress generational boundaries, such as pedophilia. To illustrate this, Rubin imagines not a pyramid, but rather a circular structure with a charmed inner circle that is deemed good, normal, natural, and even blessed, and a set of outer limits where acts are considered bad, abnormal, unnatural, or damned. The charmed inner circle would include heterosexual, married, monogamous, procreative, non-commercial, sex acts in pairs and in relationships, sex acts within a generation, in private, acts that don't include pornography and only include bodies. Vanilla sex, in other words. Rubin says the outer limits would include homosexual acts, unmarried acts or sex in sin, promiscuous or polymorphous acts, non-procreative or recreational acts, any acts that were considered commercial or for money, sex acts alone or in groups, casual or cross-generational acts, sex in public, pornography, or sex with manufactured objects, such as toys. Rubin also says that acts that are sadomasochistic or involve bondage or master-slave dynamics would also be part of the outer limits. Thus, society actually creates a set of borders between what is this charmed circle and what's considered the outer limits. However, as the result of various sex conflicts and even social movements of the last decades, some behaviors near borders are inching across. Unmarried couples living together, masturbation, and many forms of homosexuality are moving in the direction of respectability. But who creates these borders and how are they policed? Rubin suggests powerful social institutions play a central role in stratifying and policing sexual behaviors. For example, medicine can be used to cure individuals in the lower castes of their sexual desires, as they're believed to be the byproduct of some psychological or physiological disorder. We know in the past doctors have worked to discover methods to heteroize such members of society, blurring the lines between humanity and artificiality. Of course, we know for many people, sexual behaviors do not necessarily translate into any kind of identity. And given how we categorize and stratify sexual behaviors, it's not really that surprising. As you complete this week's readings, you'll see not only why, but also how some people separate their sexual behaviors from their sexual identities, as well as how others use their sexual behaviors to construct powerful and meaningful sexual and personal identities.